Okay, fifth shir of the halachas of Erev Shabbos. We are in Siman Ayin Beis. We're up to Sif Yud Daled in the Kitzur. So we're talking about preparation for Shabbos, and we were in the group, the category of Kavod and Einik Shabbos. These are specifically Kavod, I believe. And the next thing we have on the list is like this: mitzvah lachoif es harosh. There's a mitzvah to wash your hair, which again you might not have to do if you already took a went to the mikveh. By the way, I saw about the times of the mikveh. So many people say that usually the minhag, like we said by in Lubavitch, is if you go in the morning, so the next time you go is usually before Shabbos. But technically, people say some say you should do it after Chatzos. But I saw other people that say that no, you could go even before Chatzos. But if you go before Chatzos, just make sure to take a shower later because you have to do two things. Number one, mikveh is part of washing, but if you do it too early, then you have to wash again closer to Shabbos to show that you're doing a Lekavod Shabbos. But he was saying before, if you remember that if you don't have water or whatever, you're not able to, then all you really have to do is your hand, feet, and face. So now he says, in addition to that, there is a mitzvah to also wash your hair. That's also a form of preparing for Shabbos. And therefore, he says you should do that as well. And then he adds another thing, v'lakoitz es hatzipernayit. And you should also cut your nails. Okay, so now let's continue, and then I'll show you something interesting. Also to cut your hair, if they are long. Okay, so the thing you'll notice right away, and we'll come back to this in a few minutes, is that when it came to cutting the nails, it just said that it's a mitzvah to cut your nails. When it came to cutting your hair, it said if your hair is long. We're in Siman Ayin Beis. We're up to Sif Yud Daled. Siman Ayin Beis, Sif Yud Daled. Okay, so now that is important, and we'll see soon why. Then he continues and he says like this: there are those who say that you should not cut your hands and your feet on the same day. Okay, so this is something that we generally do. We try not to cut our hands and our feet on the same day. Now, what this would mean is that let's say you cut your hands by day while it's still before night. So that night you could already cut your feet because it's considered the next day for this. And there are even those who say, which I believe is probably the case, that if you cut one the night before, you could still cut the other one the next day, even though it's really the same day. Meaning day to night is already a second day, even though it could be 2 hours apart. Night to day, even though it's much farther in time, but it's possible, but it's still the same day. But nevertheless, it sounds like people are making in that area as well. Now, gam ein lokot siparno v'legalech. Oh, 1 second. We'll come back to the nail thing soon. There's more to talk about. We'll come back to that in a second. However, he adds like this, that on Rosh Chodesh, there is a minhag also that we don't cut our hair, so you don't get haircuts on Rosh Chodesh, and you also don't cut your nails on Rosh Chodesh. And he says, afilu chal be'erev Shabbos, even if Shabbos, Erev Shabbos, Friday is Rosh Chodesh, so you want to prepare for Shabbos, but you're not supposed to, so then you don't cut your hair. Now, what about your nails? He says you don't cut your nails. But if you look in the parentheses over here, they bring the Alter Rebbe brings that if it's Friday is Rosh Chodesh, don't cut your hair. But he doesn't say that you shouldn't cut your nails. In other words, it seems like your hair you won't cut on Rosh Chodesh if it's Friday. Your nails you will. Now, why? What would be the difference? So some people say, which is what I told you to remember from the beginning, that the mitzvah of cutting your nails is every single Friday. So every single Friday you cut your nails, including if it's Rosh Chodesh. However, your hair is only if it's long. So if it's long, then or whatever, if you're waiting for it, so then don't cut it that Friday. Do it the week before, do it the week after. You don't have to cut it every single Friday. So if it's Rosh Chodesh, then you don't take a haircut, but you would cut your nails. Okay, weiter. Oh, and the way they explain it is that there's an expression, mitzvah, lo yoda korah, something like that, or leigurchara. There's a few expressions that basically, if you're doing a mitzvah, you're not going to get damaged from it. So if the whole thing of why we don't do it is because of whatever different reasons, fine. But if you already do it every single week and you're doing it because it's a mitzvah of Erev Shabbos, you could. Cutting your hair is not necessarily a mitzvah because you don't have to do it every week. Okay. Let's leave that. That's an interesting little point because it does come up. People often write, go to Rosh Chodesh, I forgot to cut my nails. Can I cut my nails? Next thing. Also, if it's for a mitzvah, you could also. But let's say if a ger is going to the mikveh, let's say, so they have to take care of chatzitzis. They can't have different things. A regular person, a man, is not such a big deal because we're not so careful about it. But for those that are doing a mitzvah of going to the mikveh, so they have to sometimes cut their nails. So those types of things you could do even if it's Irish, even if it's a Shchedish. Now, yesh makpidim shlei liter lesatzipernayim kesidron ela bedilu. Now, here's something maybe you're familiar with, which is that we try not to cut the nails in order. Okay, this is different reasons brought. Basically, the most ones that I saw is that it's kasher l'shicha, which means it causes you to forget things, which is a sign of klipa. It's a sign that it's a negative thing. Well, that's the Alter Rebbe talks about where shikha comes from, where forgetfulness comes from. But the point is that there is a minhag that you don't cut in order, meaning the hainu. So he says what you should do is be a mean in your right hand. We'll skip what he says for a second. We'll read it after because we don't do it this way. We start from our left hand, okay? And in our left hand, if you read what he says, Bismoyel maschilin be'etzba haravi'is. You start with your fourth finger. Va'asimin, the siman would be debaga, if that helps you. And then your right hand, you start, whatever, it says how you started, and the siman is bidaga. Now, here's a very simple way how to remember it. Very, very simple is like this. You need to skip fingers, because that's what we just said. You can't do it in order. So you're always skipping a finger. So the only thing you need to remember is one thing. Left hand, what we call ring finger or the fourth finger. Okay? Why do you have to remember that? Because it's very simple. You start with this one, right? And then you skip. So you go 4, 2, 5. You skip 1. 4, 2, 5, 3, 1. And then, listen. And then you jump to your right hand. And the last one you just did was your thumb. So you can't do the thumb. So you do base, which is the second one, the fourth one, first, third, fifth. So you're basically doing the same thing. You're just starting from here. You finish one hand, move to the next, but you're always skipping. So you do 4, 2, 5, 3, 1. And then on this hand, you jump to 2, 4, 1, 3, 5. So you're just skipping one the whole time. Yeah.
Okay, so you're starting from the ring finger, right?
Yeah.
You're skipping the big. Why can't you do the thumb?
You skip one because that's the way. When you cut now, this one, which one do you cut next? You skip one. Just one.
I'm here, right? This is my ring finger. I skip.
Okay, so look, so let's say you do this one, right? Then you're gonna do your thumb. And then what are you gonna do next?
What? This.
So it's a little convoluted, meaning it's not organized. Why is your way better than the way that I just said?
Because you're skipping 2.
No, but you don't need to skip 2, you just need to skip 1.
Skip from the brain.
Okay, listen. This is what's brought in the poskim, but you're just making it confusing for no reason. It seems like all you need to do is skip 1, so you keep on skipping 1, and you're going to be good.
This way?
Either way you go, you're skipping 1. You're always skipping 1.
Okay, so after the first one, the thumb, we go from.
Also, by the way, sometimes if you do too much, it's not noticeable what you're doing. If you do 2, 1, this back, forth, then are you skipping? Are you just doing it out of order? It's hard to know.
Skip 2 eventually.
Okay. Okay, that's this halacha is born in different poskim. I think this is mentioned in Rabbi Yehuda Achas, if I'm not mistaken. So some of this is Kabbalistic, and not always do we understand exactly what's happening. And some of it is, basically that's generally probably where it came from. I don't think it's brought in the Gemara about this, but there are different things. There's a whole section in Shulchan Aruch. That's called about Shmiras Haguf HaNefesh, about things that we do that are mitzad sakana. For example, we don't eat the eggs that are peeled that are left overnight. If they're in a bowl, an egg that's a full egg, you don't eat if it's left overnight. There's ways how to get around it. If you add spices, what? Hard-boiled eggs. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, if it's left overnight, even if it's in a fridge sealed, you don't eat if it's left overnight, unless you leave a little peel or unless you add some spices or things like that. Same thing with garlic. Same thing. So and then it mentions other things about drinking water, let's say that's open or things like that. So there are certain things that are mitzat sakana. We're going to mention another one in just a second also about nails. So sometimes it has to do with that. Why does cutting your fingers and bring your nails in order bring you to a sakana? And why is it kasha l'shicha, which means it causes you to forget and it makes you more susceptible to to negative things? I don't know. It's a Kabbalistic thing. I can't answer you. But he says some are particular. That's a it's a thing. That's what some would say. Meaning it's brought in the Kitzur, it's brought in the Alter Rebbe, it's brought in Shulchan Aruch. It's a real thing. Yeah. Jumping out of a window? Generally not safe. I don't know. It could be. There's a lot of things. Some are not known because. No. Please. Okay, let's go back there. So that's the order. The order again is that you're always going to skip. The easy way to remember is you're starting with your ring finger on your left hand and then just skip. Keep on skipping one and you'll get there. And then you jump hands and you skip there as well. Now, gam yesh makpidim chamishi. There's also some that are makpid not to cut their nails on Thursday. Okay, so that means why every day of the week they would, besides for Thursday. Why that? Because it starts to grow on the third day, which is Shabbos. Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. And therefore, it's the way I don't have a clear understanding. I don't have a clear understanding what this means because my assumption is that it starts to grow right away. Why not? So the way when I looked around, the only thing I was able to find is that on the third day is you start to realize that there's a tiny little bit of growth. In other words, the first day after you cut it, it's probably still rounding itself off. Right, you know, we cut it sharp, and then a few days later, it's not sharp. So it sounds like that the third day is the first time that it's noticeable that it's getting a little bit, obviously very, very small, but the first time that it's noticeable. So the problem with that is that it almost looks like it's growing on Shabbos, which obviously you didn't do when you cut it 3 days before, but still, and this is also something that we do keep. So we don't cut our nails on Thursday, which is, by the way, when I was mentioning before about the Rosh Chodesh situation, that's why this comes up, because people forget the Thursday. They remember, oh no, it's tomorrow's Rosh Chodesh and I can't cut my nails, but I can't cut it now because it's Thursday. So what do I do? So the answer is it's okay. You could still cut your nails the next day on Friday. But that's something that people get thrown off because of that. Because Thursday you're not supposed to. So you only have Friday, and if Friday's Rosh Chodesh, people get confused. Now, one second. Let's finish the sif. I'll take questions in a second. It is proper to be careful that you should burn your nails. Okay, and I'll explain this in a second, but first let's take a look in the bottom. It says that Chak Admur Marshab, the Rebbe Nishmasin, the Rebbe Rashab, when he would cut his nails, he would mix together, he would put together with there like a little toothpick or a little piece of wood, a little chip, before he burned it. Now, I was curious about, okay, first of all, why is there an idea to burn your nails, first of all? So the thing is like this, and this is what I was saying before about certain damaging things. It's also brought down that there's a certain klipa that hangs around the edge of your nails. So when it's around, and if a pregnant woman would step over it, it could damage the fetus, whatever that means. I don't know what it means, but as I state. So therefore, you're makbid not to leave it around. Now, why does that make you into a chassid? There's a lot of ways to get rid of it, because basically there's also an Indian against burning, or someone's part of your own body you shouldn't burn, right? It's not a positive thing when you burn parts of your body, here, whatever it is. So here, the chassid is willing to go to the extreme of burning something that came from his body in order to make sure that someone else won't get damaged. So that's the way the Frierdiker Rebbe explained it, and that's why it's called the chassid. It's a very important thing. Like, just to save someone else, he's willing to put himself in a situation that's not a great thing. Now, someone mentioned, so today I noticed, or I noticed that the poskim write that even flushing it is also counts, which is what most people do. And I remember when I was learning this the first time, I reached out to different people that were involved in the Rebbe's house to figure out what they did there. And I don't know if it was always, but I was put in contact with Moshe Klein, he was like, at least in the later years, he was like, involved with taking care of different things. And he says that they flushed it, and there's definitely basis to it. So even though we do have, and I think it's in a Yom brought actually, that the Rebbe Rashab used to definitely the Sefer Menagos, but I think over there it says that he used to put in the thing and burn it. But again, it sounds like flushing it would be just as good. Let's take some questions. Yeah.
With the word like moving around and it doesn't have the effect that
Yes. So it says in the Shulchan Aruch, it says two things. It says, number one, if you do it in a shul, it's okay, or base medrash, because women don't go there. And the other thing they say is that if it gets moved around, it's also okay. So that's, by the way, a good idea, that let's say you're in your bathroom and you're trying to be careful about getting in, and then somehow it falls on the floor. So in that case, what you should do is take your shoe or a broom or something and just make a big sweep around the area, even if you don't find it, but it gets moved, and then already it takes away the people.
Which halacha would it be like? Why would it not be allowed to have your nails grow? It's like the same thing with like, let's say they had animals torn on Yom Tov, or like on egg is like on Shabbos they run.
No, so not really. The only thing I was able to see, again, it's a funny thing because you're not doing it on Shabbos, but you're doing it in a way that it's like. You're right. No, but that you're not doing anything for. Here you're cutting it, and the first time it's going to be. I don't know. That's what it said. But it's not a nice thing when it looks like it's growing on Shabbos because you cut it then. So better not to. 1 second. He was waiting. Yeah.
Funny story, I didn't,
Oh.
me and my brother did know the alumnus that if you move it around, that it uses it's like, Tova. So my mother was pregnant, and, I think it was like 2 a.m. in the morning, I was up like very like early, like, in the morning, and then like I like, my nail like came off, and then like, I looked at my brother, and then I was like, my nail came off, and then we spent like 30 minutes, like.
Trying to find it.
And overnight, just like looking and finding the nail.
So a solution could be also to use a cell phone flashlight because it's very focused and this way you could see a little bit easier. But I hear cell phone flashlight because it's a very direct light instead of the light from there. It'll be hard to see. Yeah, Sema, you were waiting so patiently.
Anyways, we learned these halachas in camp
Fantastic.
a few summers ago, and I forget where they brought it down from, but they brought down that not because it's gonna look like it's growing, because then you might just probably like try to pick it off, and you see it, oh, my leg, you know?
I never saw that, but
They brought.
could be. I never saw that. Yeah.
The share of the.
Anywhere not where it fell. Anywhere not where it fell. Yeah.
Let's say we had a 3-day emphasis last week, so let's just say it comes to the other Friday, it was Friday, not Yom Tov starts.
Right. You're doing it on.
Not 3 day emphasis, Yom Tov starts on Friday.
I don't know. It's a good question. I never saw anything about it. I don't know. Right. I don't know. Yeah.
You get allowed to like wash, put it down the drain.
Instead of flushing it? Yeah, same thing. I think so. I don't see this. I don't see either drain being better or worse. Okay, Sif Tezvav, yeah? B'chol Erev Shabbos. Okay, Sif Tezvav. B'chol Erev Shabbos yefashvesh b'maisav v'yis'oyer b'tshuva. Every single Erev Shabbos, a person should look through his behavior v'yis'oyer b'tshuva and to be awakened to do tshuva l'saken kol ha'kilkulim, to fix up anything which is broken in his own character. She'asa b'sheish yimei ha'maisa, anything that he may have done during the 6 days that he was more, as they say, vachnadik. So you should think about how to correct it on Shabbos. Ki Erev Shabbos koilo kol yimei ha'shavua. Because Erev Shabbos it includes all the days of the week. It's the last day before you go into Shabbos. Just like Erev Rish Chodesh includes within it the whole Rish Chodesh. So every Erev Rish Chodesh is called Yom Kippur Katan. It's called the small Yom Kippur because it's the day that you're kind of gonna be able to fix up the last 30 days. And the same thing with Friday. So here you get to the idea of Leil Shishi, which is where people will stay up or learn extra Thursday night. It's also brought down many times about saying Kriya Shema. They used to say Kriya Shema with more, kavanah to do a cheshbon of the whole week. So this is all on Thursday night because Thursday night is Friday, and that's Erev Shabbos. That is a conclusion of the whole week, and therefore it's a time to take stock of everything that happened.
Prejudge,
Yeah,
why not Friday?
that's already Shabbos.
But Shabbos is the last day of the week, not the next week.
Shabbos is a different level. Shabbos stands by itself. If you want to fix it, just like Erev Rish Chodesh, you want to fix up before Rish Chodesh. Same thing here. You want to take care of it before. Okay, Sifta Zayin. Yishtadel. We'll finish with this one. We'll do this one, then we'll finish. Yishtadel sheyiyel begadim noim. A person should make effort that they should have nice clothing for Shabbos. V'gam talis shel mitzvah, and also the talis should also be a nice one, the covered Shabbos. And the reason is the ksiv, because it says in the pasuk v'chibadetoi, that you should honor it. And what does it mean? You should honor Shabbos. V'darshinan, the Chachamim are doing shelo yehi mabushcha shel Shabbos kemabushcha shel. Your clothing that you wear on Shabbos should not be like the clothing that you wear on the weekday. We'll explain in a second. Afilu imu baderech, even if you're traveling, vein akum among goyim. So no one's keeping Shabbos besides you. So who really cares? Still yilbush bigdei Shabbos. You should still wear Shabbos clothes. Ki eina mabushim l'chvoid harayim. Because the reason why you wear clothing is not for other people. Right? As teenagers, everyone should know that you don't dress for other people or how they think of you, but you do for yourself. So here he says, Elo l'kavod Shabbos. The reason why you're going to dress nicer is to honor Shabbos, not to honor yourself. Okay, so on this, you have a few things. Let's first let's talk about this. So you have to dress nicer for Shabbos. I remember when I was in a certain yeshiva, we were very Siddish, And their thing was they would come late from Mitzrayim and they wouldn't change before Shabbos. Let's just put it that way. It was like a thing to come with like your weekday clothes on Shabbos because you walked from wherever, and it was a thing. So I think there's a middle ground. You don't have to have your Shabbos shoes and your Shabbos hat and your Shabbos belt and your Shabbos this, your Shabbos that. So that's a level. I don't know that that's what it refers to here. I think it means you have to have clothing that you dress up for Shabbos. So for Bachram, you're going to have a suit or whatever it is. For other people, you're going to have a kapata. But it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing that you should dress nicer for Shabbos. Now, about this, you take a quick look at the bottom, where it says Vav, and it says over there, Ro Lavrechim, which is Jungelite. It's quoting from the Rebbe, where it says that it will be fitting for people who are newly married, or for people that are married, basically, Shayil B'Shum B'Shabbos V'Yamtiv Bigdei Meshin, that they should wear silk on Shabbos, which is in Yiddish it will be called Zaydina Zupitze, which is basically silk kapata. Now, what happened was like this. There are some people that are makpid, by the way, to wear white on Shabbos, certain things, but that's not our minhag. Now, what's the idea of wearing meshi, of wearing silk? So the Rebbe had a sikh about it where he discussed this, and he basically explains that things come from different levels of creation. So, for example, you have different materials come from different things. So silk comes from a silkworm, a worm, and the worm creates the silk. Now, the animals, where the silk comes from, as opposed to cotton, let's say, that grows, so silk comes from an animal. Now, animals are from the world of Bria. And Shabbos represents also the world of Bria as well. It's higher than the rest of the days of the week. And therefore, on Shabbos specifically, you want to be able to wear silk, which is a higher level of consciousness in the world. And therefore, also, you're going to wear something from a higher place. Now, you're going to ask, very simple question, that wool also comes from an animal. And you would be correct if you said that. The difference is that wool is the sides of the animal, meaning it's the hair, it's the excess, it's outside of it, as opposed to silk. The animal actually creates it on its own. It actually makes it, so it's more of its own essence. So that's the idea. Now the story was like this. That it was in the Tafshin Yud Aleph. It was before the Rebbe became Rebbe. It was Simchas Torah. So it was right after Simchas Torah. It was actually on Simchas Torah, and. So it was on Simchas Torah. The Rebbe turned to someone who was known later. The Rebbe referred to him as my Makubal. His name was Rabbi Wolf Greenglass. And the Rebbe told him like this. The Rebbe motioned to him on Simchas Torah that he should take off his kapata and turn it inside out. Now he was wearing silk. It wasn't common in those days, but he was wearing silk. Because he was a Kabbalist. He was a very Siddish guy. It's a very interesting story, his whole background. But anyways, the point is, he was wearing silk. So he wrote to the Rebbe after Simchas Torah. He said, what happened? Why did the Rebbe tell me to do that? Was that because I'm not fitting to be wearing silk on Shabbos? He understood the idea of silk behind Shabbos. It's a big thing. So the Rebbe responded to him. The Rebbe said that, no, I just wanted, the reason why I said that is because I wanted it to be nicker. I wanted it to be recognizable on you that it's Simchas Torah. He was probably a very severe type of guy or something, or he actually wasn't, but maybe then he was. So the Rebbe said, I just wanted it to be clear that it's Simchas Torah for you. So that was the only thing. And then the Rebbe spoke about the idea of a kapata, of silk, I'm sorry. And the Rebbe said that really Siddim always used to wear silk, and it's an important thing that we should, and now we should. The reason why it stopped, he says, is because people in Russia, Pasha didn't have money, so they couldn't afford it. But now that we live in America, and this was in 1950, it was still 1950, so it wasn't like it was, now, or when people have more money, or at least they spend more money. Then people didn't have that. And still, the Rebbe was saying, we live in America, people have more resources. We should really go back to everyone wearing silk for this reason, like we mentioned, how important it is that we should wear it. Okay, you had a question? Okay. So let me stop the recording and I'll tell you the schedule.